The dovish CPI has caused some respite in the markets, and I believe that several of the inflation reports over the past 2 days, notably the PPI, have also been dovish. Therefore, it and #039s laying the groundwork for yields that were almost at 5% to be cool. And I believe we should be coming together at a time when sentiment has been unfavorable. The S and Amp wink with tongue sticking out is up for the first 5 days of New Year, which is a strong harbinger thus far. Therefore, I would estimate that there is an 80% possibility that the year will see anything exceeding double digits. And our performance for the month of January will be important to many. But we and #039 up 0.7% as of January 15th. Thus, those are excellent signs for the coming year. The year has gotten off to an awkward start. Scott, it seemed as though we were somewhat off to the races, and now folks are suddenly beginning to have second thoughts. However, what we examine is simply returning to the basics. Start by asking yourself if these high-cap tech names are real. Is it really that costly? Do they charge too much? The price of Nvidia is 32 times its earnings for this year. With Tesla excluded, the Mag 6 group raises almost 27 times this year and #039s earnings. It and #039s not inexpensive. It is not, in my opinion, a regionally costly group. And I continue to be fairly certain that the AI trade is thriving as we move forward throughout the remainder of this year. I believe Nvidia can keep up its efforts. Later this year, that may change. Additionally, I believe that among such megacat technologies, you can possess the names Microsoft and Meta. Apple is noticeably missing from your list, hence you didn't and #039t mention it. Additionally, there was a downgrade to sell this week, which I found to be really intriguing. It essentially stated that the switch from WWDC to close to now was punk and that it was not founded on any fundamental principles. I think that and #039s harsh, but I also think it and #039s probably fair. The fact is that all of these megacap tech companies have this amazing opportunity with AI, and Apple has demonstrated that they are dabbling in the field, but they haven't and #039 really shown us anything substantial that should make people feel like they really need to upgrade their iPhones. It and #039s likely that we won and #039t see any more substantial information from that until this year and #039s WWDC. That, in my opinion, is somewhat of a turning point for them to truly become an AI player. Whoa. Thus, we must wait for WWDC once more. Therefore, you cannot rely on an upgrade cycle that just happens. Instead, it is a rolling transaction that will be adequate. Simply said, it will take you longer to reach your intended destination. That seems like the most appropriate way to look at things. The bar is low, in my opinion, but I also believe that Apple has easy comps even if they don and #039 to get an AI tailwind. With AI and other improvements to the iPhone 16, I believe they and #039 done enough to surpass that low threshold. If you and #039 becoming enthusiastic about Apple, I imagine you and #039 asking yourself, end quote, what does it look like for next year, end quote, is it possible for them to surpass and return to that robust, double-digit growth? We haven't and #039 seen an iPhone in a while, and I believe those who are interested in AI really sincerely hope that it will speed up as well. However, until later this year, we just won and #039 know what the AI story that could propel that kind of development will be. In general, how do you feel about this backup in rates? Are you worried that it will ruin what appeared to be a strong market at the beginning of this year? To forecast the market, we employ AI and intelligent alpha Scott. The possibility of a market correction was one of the forecasts made by our AI trio, GPT, Gemini, and Claude. There was an adjustment of about 10% because it forecasted the second half of the year. It particularly pointed out that there might be another inflationary trend, which could lead to something that's somewhat like what we and #039 dealing with at the moment. Rates stabilizing or even increasing somewhat. Since rates and inflation have been the main topics of discussion in the market for the past 2 years, I wouldn't and hashtag 039 to be shocked if there were a market correction someday, even though AI may have misjudged the time. And I think we and hashtag 039 V been fortunate. The markets have been comparatively quiet during the past 2 years. I believe there has only been one 10% correction. This is highly unscientific, but you could also argue that we could be due. I would argue that since CEO Jensen Huang and hashtag 039's keynote address at CES, there has been a sell-off. Jensen refused to give certain people on the street a guidance rise, but there is now some fresh information about Nvidia retaliating. Nvidia published a fresh blog post today criticizing the Biden administration for imposing additional limitations on the importation of AI chips. Let me start with Nvidia before moving on to that news. Nvidia claims in this post, statement, and page-long regulation rambling that it was created behind closed doors and without adequate parliamentary approval. Following Nvidia and hashtag 039's outburst, the Biden administration imposed additional limitations on the export of AI chips made in the United States. The Biden administration introduced a new system with 3 layers, but I believe the third tier is receiving the most market attention. The quantity of computing power, that is, computing power, that the rest of the world could purchase is the main focus. This is thought to be the reason why China could be unable to purchase computer power from other third-world nations. Thus, that is worth observing. In the end, though, I believe this problem highlights at least 3 aspects of Nvidia. First, keep in mind that Nvidia is now a worldwide business, which increases the danger of making headlines. It and hashtag 039's not only a US business. A business is attempting to introduce artificial intelligence chips to the world. You must therefore have that in mind. Additionally, there is danger associated with the Trump administration. Given President Trump and hashtag 039's emphasis on US prosperity, it is quite likely that the Trump administration will maintain the regulations implemented by the Biden administration. Finally, but just as importantly, you must remember that no company and hashtag 039's growth occurs instantly. As they attempt to defend their valuation and promote their goods in front of as many people as possible, Nvidia and many other chip companies will continue to make these fits and starts. Is it better to stick with a few individual stocks and steer out of the larger semiconductor basket or ETF, in your opinion, or can I just purchase SMH and let it ride? Purchasing SMH and letting it go was, in my opinion, a 23 to 24 narrative. 25 will be a different kind of year. It will be far more detailed. The leadership roles are where you truly want to go, and that and hashtag 039's where prices make sense. Summary, that is the calendar spread. You are risking $175 on this deal, as indicated by the $1.75 debit. However, you and hashtag 039 LLC from that risk profile that accuracy is crucial. This technique works best if the stock moves in the direction of that strike and reaches it fairly near the short option and hashtag 039's expiration. You are at risk in both directions, though. Naturally, it may not perform as well as you anticipated in this instance, and it may overshoot to the upside. And also did poorly on the downside.